Avatar had an interesting and varied cast set in an intriguing world that mixed emerging technology with magic. We've seen already that Republic City has further explored the latter, leaping forward to bring that marriage together in an exciting place, which is important because while Avatar was constantly on the move, Korra is staying put. We have the setting down, but what about the characters? Because the thing about the characters of Avatar was that they were complicated. Aang had values and tried to stick with them, but he was sometimes unable to see the larger picture or to put aside his own issues. Katara was the mom of the team, but that had a good side and a dark side to it. Sokka was the comedy guy, but also ingenuity and bravery, and had a complexity beneath the surface. And Zuko is the poster child for complexity. To live up to Avatar, Korra would need to work on that as well, so let's get into the meat of the series, starting with episode 3. Korra's getting into this pro-bending stuff just in time for bad news. The team's broke and they need 30,000 yuans in order to participate in the championship matches. Mako takes a job at the power plant, where he shoots lightning into what I assume are some kind of capacitors or batteries. While there's more lightning benders about than there were in the previous show, it's apparent that it's still rare enough that Mako is pretty special because he can do this. Anyway, that's all well and good, but Bolin's tired of Mako always being the one who fixes all of their problems. So first he tries raising money by having his fire ferret do tricks, but shockingly that doesn't rake in the big bucks. So soon he takes a job providing extra security for the triple threat triads, criminals. Mako notes his absence and assumes that he went to hang out with Korra. He can tell Bolin's got a thing for her. What he can't tell is that Korra has a thing for Mako, and because he tends to be a bit dismissive of her, she's a little pissed off with herself about that, and the fact that she's responding to negging. Korra offers to use Naga to help find him, and they learn from a street urchin, the traditional meaning of street urchin. I know this is the world of Avatar, so I should clarify it's not some kind of spiky rat or something. They learn from him what Bolin's been up to, and they arrive to see him and some of the triads being taken away by guys in weird outfits. They chase them down, but they're chi blockers, and they disable Korra and Mako so they can get away. Mako reveals that they work for Amon, the head of the Equalists, so Korra figures waiting for that Equalist protester would be a good plan. While they wait, Korra asks about what's going on, and Mako admits that they used to work for the Triads before they went into pro-bending, but it was just running numbers and only because they were orphans trying to survive.
Bolin's the only family I have left. If anything happened to him...
And that was when Mako made the decision to become Wolf Batman. Kurt Vonnegut wrote a short story called Harrison Bergeron, who, in order to achieve total equality, everyone had to have all their advantages weighed down so that they couldn't be better than anyone else. If you were strong, you had weights. If you were smart, you had to listen to an earpiece all the time that made noises to keep you distracted. If you were beautiful, you had to cover yourself up. We learned from that just because something comes in the name of equality does not mean it is good. There's a profound difference between inequality because of a system stacked in favor of some, and inequality because we're all different. We all have different abilities. Now, this protester's grievances are somewhat justified in that benders are offered opportunities within the system, such as in the pro-bending. If you're not a bender, you can't be in pro-bending. But others aren't true. We'll later see that the head of the Council of Five, the governing body for the Republic, was once Sokka. And while the majority of Team Avatar were benders, the contributions of Sokka, Suki, and others such as the Mechanists were obvious. Of the four nations, the only one who was ruled by a bender in Aang's time was the Fire Nation. Bumi was a king, but not the king of the entire Earth Kingdom. This system should be watched to ensure that benders can't oppress non-benders using that system, definitely. But the natural advantage bending gives them in many ways should no more be curtailed than the ability to sing well, or build things, or think. And of course, roughing up this guy in the street's a bit of a no-no too. Let me repeat from last time. You do a poor job of convincing people you're not oppressing them by threatening them for saying things you don't like. But they learn from the pamphlets that she scatters all over the place where this meeting is that Bolin was probably taken to. And sure enough, Dr. Doom's there to give a speech about how benders killed his family and scarred him. That's why he wears that mask. His big reveal is that he has the same ability that Aang showed at the end of Sozin's Comet, energy bending, the forgotten ability from before there even was an Avatar. He uses it on the leader of the Triads, who loses his firebending, but luckily Korra and Mako save Bolin from that fate, and Amon lets him go so that word of his ability will be spread even further. The fourth episode opens with Korra having a nightmare about Amon taking away her bending, a fear so great that Tarlok, representative of the Northern Water Tribe on the council, believes a task force is going to be needed to deal with, and use force if necessary. But Tenzin believes this will only further the division. But Tarlok's playing on the fear, and the rest of the council goes along with that. And as expected, Amon uses this as a rallying cry for more non-benders to join his cause. So Tarlok puts himself as head of this new task force and comes by to ask Korra to join him. But to everyone's surprise, she says no. Back in the character plot, Mako is hit by a very hot girl on a moped named Asumi, who even better is a huge fan of his and crazy rich because her father, Mr. Sato, is the inventor of the modestly named Satomobile. Mako is naturally attracted to her, while Korra is attracted to him, and she's visited by Bolin with a present for saving him from Amon, and because he's attracted to her. And of course Bolin has never expected that Pabu the Fire Ferret secretly longs for them to be more than friends. But Asami could be the answer to all their non-romantic problems, because she brings Mako to meet her dad, a kind of an understanding man.
Hey, Hiroshi. So, I understand you're dirt poor.
The 1% aren't even bothering to mince words anymore. But he's decided to sponsor them in the tournament, so long as they'll wear his logo on their uniform. That's a little better than what Tarlok is doing. He's sending more and more elaborate gifts to Korra to try to change her mind, and even throwing a party in her honor so that the two plots can converge. Korra's anxious over Amon, annoyed at Tarlok's persistence, and now jealous of Asami being with Mako, plus she's furious over what's going on Glee right now. Maybe someone can really cheer her up.
I believe you and Avatar Korra have already met?
Just because the city's throwing you this big to-do, don't think you're something special.
That should help. Hopefully your depression will wrap around far enough it'll come back the other side and turn into happiness. To round this out, Tarlok takes Korra to an unexpected press conference where being called a coward is enough to push her over the edge to totally pissed off, and she declares she's joining the task force. Doodly doodly doodly. She's on a raid with Tarlok in a chi-blocking training house, which gets big press, but it's all about how Amon is still at large, so she finally challenges him to a one-on-one duel. Well, shockingly, the bad guy cheats. He brings an army of chi-blockers, and soon she finds herself facing him exactly as it was in her nightmares, but he lets her go without taking away her bending. He doesn't want her to be a martyr and have benders rally around her so soon. Plus, it's only a third of the way into the series, too early for the big showdown. When Tenzin finds her, she breaks down crying and admits her terror. By now, what's obvious about Korra is that, like the announcement every episode said about Aang, she's a lot to learn before she's ready to save anyone. But for the opposite reason than Aang. The bending is coming easy, but being an avatar is what she's struggling with. She has power, but she lacks wisdom. She has too much to prove and is too inclined to act out her frustrations. She works great as a character. We see she's on a journey like Aang was, and we're seeing that becoming the Avatar is about more than just learning to master the elements. Korra needs to, and I'm sorry, but there's no non-cliche way of saying it, she needs to bring balance to herself, to not just accept the parts of the job that she loves and shirk the rest. And while she's a little more full of herself than she probably should be, it doesn't go so far as being annoying, and it is rather human that a teenage girl would want to flaunt being extra special. The rest of the characters, well...
Here we are, all alone in the gym. Just you and me. Two alone people. Together. Alone.
Bolin, why do I get the feeling that you wouldn't do that put your dick in a bucket of popcorn trick only because you felt that was too sophisticated? This gets more awkward when, after Korra gets a little advice, she starts to make the moves on Mako after their first big victory in the championship. The subtle approach fails, and...
Asami and I are...
Look, I really like you, and I think we were meant for each other.
And that one doesn't work well either. Her crash landing is cushioned by Bolin, who asks her out, and so heaps praise upon her that she can't help but say yes. While they're out on their sordid date, she has a run-in with the head of the Wolf Bats, this guy who looks like Ian Flux should be kicking him in the face. There'll be tough competition, but... I suppose when you're dealing with Nickelodeon, some things are just kind of expected. Like I said, there'll be tough competition, and for Korra, it seems like the whole pro-bending thing is a way of getting her mind off of the mess with Amon, but getting her mind off Mako is something else. especially because a spat with him makes her think that he's jealous now. And we know that she is definitely jealous. So during the match, they nearly get their butts kicked. It's only Bolin being on top of his game that they manage to stay in it. His thanks is for Mako and Korra to make up and then make out right there in front of the arena. Bolin... Here's the thing. Sokka in Avatar was the primary comic character, but he was just kind of lucked into because Jack DeCina, who has a background in improv, started ad-libbing funny stuff and it just became part of his character. Part of his character. I don't just mean his role as the idea guy, though. I mean things like, when Suki first kicked his butt, he reflected on it, saw the truth, and instead of resenting her, was willing to return and show his respect for her and his willingness to put aside his pride. Likewise, when he approached the master about learning swordsmanship, he showed both the ability to see himself for what he is, but also illustrated his innate abilities. Those two saw the same thing in him the viewer saw, that Sokka was more than just the goofball. There was more to him than that. Bolin, in contrast, is the comic guy, and unlike Sokka, we saw from day one that he's good at what he does, no doubt, but he has the same goofball-style stuff going on without anything really more to it. Sure, he likes Korra, but that's about it. He doesn't have the qualities that make him connect with the audience. I'm not saying he had to be Sokka in order to be a success. That would have been a mistake. What I mean is that it's hard to have the same appreciation for this as it could have been because Bolin feels too shallow. Indeed, because so much of it has been about Korra and Mako pining that his feelings seem unimportant when he spots them and runs off. It should have been heartbreaking to see him crying like that. Instead, it was just another thing that the silly guy was doing.